Good afternoon and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. So happy to have you watching this in playback or popping in today as we discuss our card of the week on 78 cards in 78 weeks. This week, our card is the King of Wands, our fiery lord, as it were. And before we hop into talking about it and sharing some of the cards from my collection, I wanted to let you know that you are welcome to join me to talk about the card of the week and to share your favorite versions of the card. So feel free to reach out to me by any means available in the link tree link in the description box. Normally, you only have 1 week from the time the broadcast ends and I draw the card for next week until the next broadcast. This week, however, we will be drawing the card, which we'll be doing in 2 weeks because I'm going to be taking vacation starting the end of this week. And then I will resume operations the following week. So we're looking at the 21st. So this is your opportunity if you think you need a little more time to prepare to be on with me to do so. And so at the end of the broadcast, if you fall in love with the card I draw, or you simply are happy to have more time to prepare, then that will be your opportunity. Welcome, Tarot Stash. So glad to see you there and that you could join us before your other event this afternoon. So we are looking at the King of Wands, and typically, of course, this is a man sitting on a throne, representing there with some salamanders, some fire, and even lion for royalty. You got your wand, and there are a lot of cards that follow this idea, right? The Curious Travels is really pretty. The flames are actually the head. And then in the Tarot of the Twirling Hands here, you have a lot of the same features, but they're arranged very differently. And again, here is our King of Wands in the Lost Hollow Tarot, which I kind of like this guy. He kind of has this fiery hair that makes him look a bit like a lion. And there's his little salamander tie clip. And so while he's not on a throne, very reminiscent of the things that we normally will see in a card. The mystical medleys also follow suit, but they make this king actually a director to emphasize that creative energy of the suit. And I think it's adorable. He's got his little lion keeping him company there as he sits in his director's chair with the salamander on it. A nice yellow cap for a crown. Beautiful depiction. And then, of course, there's the Robin Wood. She does a really great job with the apparel of the various courts in her deck, making them very elementally associated. We don't see our lion or salamander necessarily, but she gets that whole flame energy going that we want to see in the king. And while in this deck, the Pocket of Peers, there aren't particularly kings in the traditional sense. There is still a man sitting upon his throne with the salamander and lion represented as well. Very reminiscent of that concept that we see throughout the Smith-Waite edition of the cards. Now, astrological correspondences for the courts varies greatly, more so than most correspondences, from deck creator to deck creator. And but many people embrace the correspondence that I use and have been following for a while now. That works pretty well for me. And that is that the kings are related to the fixed astrological signs, the queens to the cardinal astrological signs, and the knights to the mutable astrological signs. And then the pages, as representing a more youthful energy, are still really developing in their suit and could express the attributes of any of those signs at any time. And so we see this in a lot of cards. We get that very strong Leo energy represented um, in cards that move away even from the idea of a king to a person today. And we've just seen the Uncommon Tarot. This is the Light Seers Tarot. And here's our Hearts and Hands Tarot, where the man himself has been made to resemble a lion. And so we get a lot of that Leo energy. A concept that comes up a lot in discussions of this card is the entrepreneur. A business person who is goal oriented and a leader in the business realm. And we see that depicted here in the Lightworkers deck. Welcome, Ange. So glad to have you here. Appreciate your input this week on Good Journeys into Tarot about the card design. I tend to tag people in the group if I don't get any responses. And so Ange was happy to help me yesterday, and I was greatly appreciate that. So check out that group. It is in the link tree below in the description box. Some cards will have a man focusing primarily on the fire, like we saw in the Robin Wood. Here it's represented by candles, which in some decks is our suit of fire. This happens to be the Lily White. This is a deck that I absolutely love and I take out and I work with during the summer all of the time. I love this card, and I'm going to tell you why. This is the Tarot of the Holy Light. And while this is meant to be a king, you'll see his crown there. The way he is dressed and where he is located makes him somewhat unique. He's actually out in the world. He is passionate about leading his people, and so he's out there with them. He's not sitting on a throne in a building somewhere away from them. And that's an aspect that I like to see in a leader, in someone of authority, that they actually are walking the walk as much as, telling us what to do, right? This is a card which was very confusing the first time I saw it, and I still struggle with this image so much. And that is the Slow Tarot. I think it's because of the realism of the wall behind him that I was always confused why there was a lamp floating in the sky. And it took me a long time to realize that the wall was painted with this scene behind him, and the lamp was on the wall, which it's just distracting to me. But I do like how the fire emerges from his head as a kind of crown. It seems a little bit odd to have him holding the burning wand there from a realistic standpoint. When you look at most of the cards in this deck, they are very much have an everyday kind of feel. This just feels a little bit otherworldly with the flames, but it's an interesting idea. Here we have a man. He's looking at a map or plan of some kind, as he's possibly giving direction to other people. Now there's a whole group of cards here that actually decide that, you know what, there are too many men in the tarot. We need more women, or at least non-binary people. And while many people today would say, the court cards could be anyone, or represent that specific energy in anyone, regardless of gender, some choose to regender them. And even rename them. So we get the bosses in the Hipchick Tarot, the boss of Create, which is the fire suit here. And they all have these little badges that say different things. This one says do it. There's that wand is actually a paintbrush throughout this deck. So that creative energy and that action-oriented energy of fire. This might hurt is somewhat reminiscent of the Smith Way. You got a crown there and someone sitting on a throne of sorts. You got your fire energy and your little salamander. But in this case, it is a woman. And I love how she did the skies in her deck, which you'll notice I do with the wallpaper in some of mine. Like in the wands, I have kind of an orange and khaki kind of color wall. And to denote the suit. And Gerald says, I don't mind renaming the court cards, especially if they add a different, refreshing understanding of the card. And I agree. I like to, I like tradition, but I also want things to be relevant, right? And so, in some ways, changing them from kings or even altering the names of the suits doesn't really bother me, though it took me a long time to get to that point. Here's another depiction of a female or non binary person as the King of Wands from the Ride or Wait deck, which is a lovely deck. And here in the Numinous Tarot, they're actually called Mystics, and the suit is Candles. And so still kind of a fiery throne there, right? Even though they've attempted to remove gender and the suit names, transforming those as well, it still gives off very much the same kind of energy that we see. Yeah, Gerald is giving us lots of great input today. I respect tradition and what tradition want tradition to evolve as society does. Absolutely. Here are some of my favorites that I did not show on Instagram today. One, of course, being the Life is Like a Board Game, calls the provider of authority and charm. And that's something we're going to be talking about in just a moment. I don't usually share the Thoth courts because there's a lot of debate between which cards are actually which when you compare the two. It's always been my feeling that, Crowley screwed it up. But I believe his knights are actually knights and not kings, the way he has depicted them. And the energy and even the keywords that he gives to them are the keywords for the knights, not for actual kings. Whereas his princes don't actually align with either the knights or the kings. So it just adds more confusion. But I do have a Thoth-based deck that I wanted to show. And that one is the Prince of Wands from the Urban Tarot. And I showed it because to me, this kind of captures that energy of the king. This is called the journalist. So basically, someone who is charismatic, a leader in their realm of influence in their world. And so here you see someone who has basically their own show, right? And their own voice out there. And so it really resonates with me for this particular card. And here's the Bonestone and Earth Flash. They chose to adopt a Egyptian sun god motif for the King of Wands. And so those are some of the cards from my collection and the things that I've seen in them and they bring to them. Yeah, I thought that's something that I picked up last year and started working with. And there are some cards in it that I love. And so you see me using them or it's similar imagery in some of my cards as I create them. But there are other cards which I think Crowley just, lost his mind on. And I could say the same for Wade on certain cards as well. But so let's talk a little bit about the Lord of Flame and the Lightning. This is our authority in fire. Typically, people refer to them as the person of honor and of charisma, and so a natural born leader, a visionary, And in many cases, an entrepreneur, so someone who actually has the leadership skill to build something and to expand it, which is really what our kings are all about in the courts. Is they are about expanding the influence of their suit in some way in the world around them. And so our King of Wands is wanting to expand that creative and passion energy out into the world. They can be inspiring. The best case scenario, they're going to lead by example and they're going to be independent. Um, Now, here's where different books and readers view the card differently. Some automatically assume that the King of Wands is going to be a uh, kind of difficult person to work with. Like they're going to be overly patronizing or like um, abusive in some way just because they are the King of Wands. However, for me, that would be more of a shadow aspect of this card, right? I mean, in their best case scenario, this is a person who has a charisma to draw people to them to expand their influence and their energy. Whereas for me, the shadow side of that, which sometimes people will associate with this king automatically, and I think that comes from the negative reaction to authority that many people have, include things like being impulsive and hasty, ruthless, having high expectations. Maybe they're overly ambitious or overly assertive with people, and perhaps even misuse their power. Um, Alternately, another option would be that they're cowards, right? Instead of getting out there and representing and making things happen, they actually are coward and don't act, don't do, which is really what fire is about. It's about passion, it's about action, doing, being, expanding. Um, so we've talked a little bit about the symbols. My coloring is very much similar to the Smith Waite card, simply because I'm fine with the image as it is. And I like that it has all of the yellows and oranges and reds of fire in it. And, we see the lions, which we often associate with royalty, but in this case, also possibly with Leo. If you follow that astrological correspondence, that idea of leadership and courage. And then the salamander, which alchemists have always associated with fire, because obviously cold-blooded creatures are drawn to warmth, so you see them around the fires. You see lizards bathing in the sun, and that type of thing, and so it kind of becomes a representation of accepting of that energy, right? um, which I think is pretty neat. So let's look at the card that I've been working on this week. And again, I share throughout the week on Instagram and in Good Journeys into Tarot Facebook group the card as I'm working on it, and give people an opportunity to have input if they will. And for some people who have shared comments in the past, I will tag them to ensure that they see it. This is the card that I started. Well, that's the wrong card. Sorry. Let me go back to the beginning. Whoops. Oh, my bad. Uh, so this is where we started. This was my initial like gut reaction, creating the card. I knew I wanted to be someone who looked like they were charismatic, holding a microphone. I didn't so much want it to be apparent like who they were, right? So in my mind, it could be a businessman, it could be a cleric or clergy person, it could be a politician, anyone really who is reflective of charisma. And I thought speaking in front of a group really kind of demonstrates that. And I wanted the salamander and the lion there just for the sake of that connection. One of the things I noticed as I was posting it online was this lion is actually larger than the molding here on this podium. And so I actually shrunk it. and added some embellishment. And then I thought the back, like the wall behind him, was just too plain, and I wanted to add some decoration. And my first response was a Harlequin pattern, because I'd used this black and red Harlequin pattern on the floor in the chaplain, which is my version of the Hierophant, and I kind of like that little bit of connection there of person who is standing at the front of people, leading them, guiding them, to associate with this card. And so I was kind of trying to connect that a little bit, but I really couldn't make any variation of this Harlequin pattern work without it just being overly busy for me. And so I tried making it different colors: orange, red, beige, like the floor. It just seemed too plain to me. It didn't seem to have that energy that I wanted. And so I played with fire. And this was the first thing that I did. I filled it up with fire, and I was like, you know what? This looks too busy to me. And so I went back to just having the flames at the bottom, and I played with different colors in the background: orange, red, a combination of the two. And as I posted it online yesterday, and I'm looking at it, I realized that the title for this card is the front man. So this is the person who has the charisma to be out front and guiding whatever organization it is, whether this is a church leader or a business leader or a politician, to stand out and be the charismatic, honorable leader of their endeavor, right? And so I went with the title front man. Um, and then I realized that one of the things that was bugging me is that the characters seemed too high on the card, and so I moved the character. Um, and I even played with various times moving the salamander to different places. So having him at the top, which is something I haven't done with any of the cards yet, breaking the barrier on the titles. But I really didn't like it. So I finally just moved him into the corner where I thought he belonged. But everybody loved that version where the flames were coming from the top and the bottom. And once I lowered this fellow, I actually decided that it worked for me as well. And so I think that this is going to be the final version of the card, um, unless somebody offers me some input that's just really dramatically different. I think I'm very happy with it. I think it captures everything that I want to see in a King of Wands in a kind of modern setting, and it also feels right. It feels like people that I have encountered in my life that have that energy of the King of Wands. So again, I want to thank everyone who's popped in today, especially Ange for her advice on the card yesterday, and Tony, who hopefully will see this in playback, for their input. If there's something you think I can tweak or would make it better or needs to change, let me know, because I do love people's ideas. That's one of the reasons that I do these videos and share these things as I'm working on them, is that I want the input of others. I want to build community for myself, as well as see what other people think about the cards and feel about the cards, and ensure that I get that into my versions as well. Let's shuffle and see what our card is going to be on the 21st. So that's 2 weeks. So if you've never been on here, or even if you have and you would like to join me as we continue this journey, you'll have 2 weeks to prep this time. So this might be your opportunity, if your schedule is usually pretty hectic, to join me. Our card for this week, and we have fewer and fewer cards. Oops, let me just write that. We have fewer and fewer cards, so it gets more and more awkward to shuffle, right? We're actually, I don't even remember now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So we only have 30 cards left. That means we've done 58 cards. And actually, 5 of these cards I've already created, but we haven't discussed them on social media. There were cards that just came to me that I was very passionate about at some point over time. And yeah, 48. You're right. 48. My brain didn't math. Thank you for correcting me. See, I like it when people inform me of my mistakes. And that's something that I don't get a lot, right? A lot of feedback. And so it's great when it happens. Here is our card. This is a card that I've kind of been looking forward to and dreading at the same time. It is Temperance, or the Holy Guardian Angel, as some would call it in the tarot. And so, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to working with this, and also a little bit trepidatious about doing this card, because for me, it's a very important card in the development of your practice and life. Temperance is our card, which we will be exploring over the next couple of weeks. And on the 21st, we'll have our 78 cards in 78 weeks broadcast about it. I would love for someone or someone's to join me to talk about this card, show off some of your favorites, and share your personal meanings and experiences with the card as you've studied it. So please do drop me a line at any of my social media, which again is in the link tree in the description box below. Until next time, everyone, good journeys.